Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another Friday Arduin review. This time I'm reviewing the phone book of Arduin Eternal. This is a massive, massive hardback book full of Arduin goodness. It is a complete role-playing game, although I think there are a couple of supplement books that can go along with this. I'll have to double check. I'm pretty sure there's at least one, if not two, other really small books that add to this, but they're not crucial. Although, of course, the Legendary Lands of Kaz I would recommend for any Arduin game because it is the encyclopedia of all of the lands of Arduin, all the different countries and continents and islands and all those things. But let's get right into this book. It's a bit heavy. It's over 800 pages, and I'm going to be doing this in parts. I've gone through the first 200 pages this week, and I'll try to knock it out 200 pages at a time. Hopefully, being able to leave off at a good point. And as always, I will go through the table of contents. Each chapter, give you a little description of what to expect and my opinions on it, and then go from there. There are some very nice pieces of artwork here, but I do believe a lot of them have been published elsewhere in the Arduin library, so I'm not going to go too much into them unless I find a particular piece of artwork that I want to show off. And just real quick, let me scan and see if there was anything that really struck me as epic. So far, just individual images of the different racial types, and I don't really want to go into that. I'm sure you guys already know them by heart if you're Arduin fans. If not, you know most of them, and I did go through most of them in some of the other reviews that I've done. But right off the bat, you start with your usual introduction and the thank you pages and things like that, and all of the other data, publishing dates and things like that, who worked on it, etc. Right off the bat is character creation. Now this game is a completely new system compared to everything I've ever encountered with Arduin and other role-playing games. It doesn't have the usual character design stats in the old traditional Dungeons & Dragons faction. It does have a lot of familiar stats like strength and things like that, but a lot of those stats are now renamed, and many of them combine to create yet another stat, kind of like Star Frontiers, I think, and Top Secret, if you're familiar with those old TSR classics. The character stats, let's see if I can just go through most of them. One of the things I like about this book a lot are the many... Hold on, folks. Little four-legged guy wants out. You know how it is with puppers. There are many little blurbs on the sides of the pages of Arduin legends and little bits of information that they encapsulate in little scrolls or parchment pages. Right off the bat, you have your attributes: adroitness, which is pretty much dexterity; charisma, constitution; essence; ego; mass; reason; reflex; size, which is a new one for many games; and then the characteristics, which are things like aptitude, which is reason, wit, and essence added together; coordination, which is reflex and adroitness; count factor, which is wisdom and reflex; hit points are your strength, mass, size, and con. So there are many things like that that are sort of a new way of doing character stats. Then you come to the races, which there are Amazon, Centaur, more centaurs, Deodants, which are a adaptation of the Deodin from the Dying Earth saga with a couple of little twists thrown in there, but I really like that they one were fans of the old Dying Earth by Jack Vance, as well as which Deodants used to be more or less a kind of like a zombie, not a zombie, but like a ghoul or a ghast, but with a little bit more life and a little bit more scariness to them. Kind of if you would take a vampire, an elf, and some sort of cat, big cat like a tiger, or probably panther in this case, and mix them into a humanoid. And you have dwarves, elves, gnolls, gnomes, goblins, hawkmen, which are kind of amusing, possibly fun, but absolutely not going into an actual dungeon, unfortunately, for obvious reasons. Then you have hobbits, humans, Kai Shang, which are kind of like a otter or weasel type humanoid that are actually quite skilled and pretty impressive as a character type, something completely new. Then the Kaiserian, which are basically, I want to say, lynx people, humanoid lynxes, and obviously the two races hate each other more than any others, both being former starfaring civilizations that, for whatever reasons, are now inhabiting parts of Arduin. The Noblins, which are I think a cross between kobolds and goblins. I believe they also have wings. Yes, they're a small, imagine a small winged goblin. Then Cobbits, which are a crossbreed of kobolds and hobbits. And orcs. The Padaha Ha, which are basically the panda from Kung Fu Panda in character form. They're also pretty interesting, but probably something I wouldn't be likely to run. Then, of course, the little guy's favorite, the Franks, which are giant, kind of like mantis or aphid people that are quite interesting. A lot of fun to play. I've played many of them over the years. The Saurig, which are basically Arduin's version of lizardmen. You have the swamp and the desert versions. Also very fun characters to run. The Throom, one of my favorite character races in Arduin. I'm going to actually show the picture so you can get a good idea of what they are. They're very much a adaptation of the Tharks from John Carter, Warlord of Mars, except they aren't as green and they aren't as, I want to say, thin. They're pretty bulky, pretty burly, very unemotional, very straightforward character class. A great race to run if you're a new role player and you're not so comfortable with the actual role playing aspect, the acting in character and doing those sort of things, because they're rather taciturn and quiet, except in combat, and very simple creatures. It would be a good race to run if you're a new role player and you want to run something that's just a war machine, 4 arms, extra tall, extra beefy, very easy to play. Then the Orc or Orokai, which are basically the baddest of the orcs. Super efficient, probably the scariest types of orcs to run. Very intelligent in comparison to regular orcs. Overall, just a lot of fun if you want to run a bad guy. Then the Wolflings, which are exactly as you might picture them. Werewolves that do not change back and forth. They're just constantly in wolf form. A humanoid race of basically just wolfmen. Then we'll go back to the table of contents. This game goes very in-depth and a lot of detail into the cultures, the cultural influences, and the things that will make your character not just more unique, but give them flavor from where they actually come from and how they've lived up until this point. Not so much like Traveler in the way of rolling up your life path, etc., but the more subtle things, what kinds of food you eat, what kind of government did you live under, some of the holidays and traditions and festivals and things like that that you'd expect to know, having grown up in each and every individual location throughout the world of Arduin. Then the professions and paths, and that's where I'm going to stop. And I'm going to go through the professions because unlike many games, this one has quite a few professions to choose from. Well, let's start just so I can just go ahead. 161. So it's way off. And mind you, these professions are not always exactly what you would expect from a game like Dungeons and Dragons or maybe even Pathfinder. They are rather complicated, and when you're done, you will have spent quite a bit of time putting together a character because there are many options along the way when it comes to not just skills, but professional options and bonuses and things like that. So starting alphabetically, there is the Bard, the Courtisan, which, for those of you unfamiliar with it, if you've ever watched Firefly or Serenity, Inara, the companion, was a Courtisan. The best example I could give, while it's a science fiction example, if you were to translate it into Arduin, that is exactly what you would get. And I think quite possibly it may have at one point helped influence Joss Whedon to make Inara's character. Then there is the Druid. Let's not go too fast. The Mage, the Medicine Man, the Paladin, the Priest, the Psychic, the Rune Weaver. Rune Weavers are an interesting form of magic user. If you've ever read, I believe it was the Changeling, and I believe Eye of Cat. No, that's a completely different story, I think. But if you've ever read The Changeling from Roger Zelazny, that will give you a good idea of what he's talking about, where the Rune Weavers can actually see the magical colors and ribbons and bands of magic just that normal people cannot see, and they just grab them and tie them together and use them to make their spells. The Sage, the Savage, the Techno. One of my favorite aspects of Arduin is the fact that there is so much science fiction and sci-fi goodies thrown in and splashed all over the world of Arduin. The Technos are a perfect example. They are a secretive guild or organization, kind of like the Freemasons and the architects of old, where they hoard and keep to themselves their knowledge of things like electronics and mechanical workings and chemistry, and have it almost like a form of magic, but only in the way other people view it. They know the secrets. They have their blueprints and libraries full of, books of technological lore that they've compiled over the years, if not millennia, and keep it to themselves. And a techno character running from first to very high levels can start out with just the bare knowledge of their organization, and by the time they've reached 20th or 30th or 40th level, they can literally put together all manner of technological devices, from guns to jetpacks and things like that. Mind you, it would be very difficult putting all the ingredients together and pounding those out, but they still managed to do so. Thief, obviously, what game would be complete without a thief? The Trader, as in merchant type trader, not traitor. The Warrior. Then we go on to the paths, which I did not get to. Mind you, that was 204 pages that I powered through this week, and I will start next week with the paths on up to page about 400, maybe a little further if the chapter requires it. Actually, page 402 will stop me right at a good stopping point. So there you have it for the first section of Arduin Eternal. And when I'm done with this, I'll probably go into the other companion volumes of this when I remember and find out exactly which books they were. But if you want a really solid new style of RPG and you're a huge fan of Arduin, I would definitely recommend this be your go-to. The older books are absolutely wonderful and integrate well with things like Dungeons and Dragons. But if you want something new and it's compiled into just but one book or maybe 2 or 3 books instead of half a dozen or more books that have various rule changes throughout the years, this is one solid compiled role-playing game. Mind you, a new Arduin role-playing game is in the works, but I have no idea when that will be out. And if you guys already have this book, hook up with me in the comment section or my email address. You guys all know where to find that. We're also on Discord, Instagram, and Facebook. I would love to hear you guys' opinions on this book, as I've never run this as a campaign or even a one-shot. I only recently acquired this book in my collection, I want to say about 6 months ago. So this is my first read-through. And as to whether or not I will run this, that's hard to say because I'm already currently engaged in several role-playing games and trying to do things for the channel and hang out with the family and all that good stuff. But I would really like to hear everybody else's opinions on this book. If you've got it, if you're interested in getting it, if you've played it, especially, please, give me a shout out and let me know what you think of it. So far, I really like it, but I would definitely need to reread it a few more times and really work it out before I was ready to run a campaign through this. Although I wouldn't mind jumping in as a player, which is sometimes the best way to go to learn a new game or a game system. But that's pretty much it for today. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and join us over at Max's Chill Stream if you get the chance tonight, or one of our other videos. And we will also be doing a shadow chat this Saturday evening, 7 o'clock avocado time. Hope to see you guys all then. And until then, have a great weekend.